Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Beyond Bold podcast. It is your host, Kyla Bold, and thank you so much for joining me here today this week. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that I am in workout clothes because I recently just joined a new gym. I am absolutely loving it. It was one of my New Year's resolutions to get outside more because I work at home and also get in the gym more. I am lucky enough to have a gym in my basement, just like a one with like a bench and some barbells and a mirror and stuff. It's nice, but it doesn't have like all the machines. And I also really felt like I needed something that would get me out of the house more. As I said, I work at home and it's so easy just to go days and days and days where you don't leave the house and you don't get fresh air because you're at home, you have everything and you're working at home too. So joining a gym was a big step for me, but I'm so excited and I'm loving it so much. But today is the day I put out Beyond Bold. So I had to rush home from the gym and I said, Kyla, you're not going to bed until you get this episode out. So I'm super excited to be talking to you guys today. So today's episode is really exciting for me because it's something that I've been really focused on, which is brain health. So last year, as you guys know, or as I said in previous episodes, I worked so hard. It was a year in which just so much changes happened in my business, so much changes happened in the economy, so much changes happened in my industry that I really felt that our company had to be more flexible than usual. And it caused us to just be in situations where we were working nonstop. That, on top of the fact that I had to travel a lot more for work, I found myself pulling multiple all-nighters multiple times a week, and I really noticed towards the end of the year that my brain health was taking a hit. And what I mean by brain health is I felt like a lot more groggier, I felt foggier, I felt like I was managing stress really well, but my stress levels were higher. And part of that it was just because of, the phase that my business was in, but a part of that was also because I was just so fatigued. And so towards the end of the year, I decided to get back into really figuring out how I could be performing at optimal level. And one of the reasons why I decided to make it a big focus of mine this year is because my goal was not to work harder than I did last year. I don't think it's possible for me to put in more hours at work than I did last year. And honestly, my goal this year is to put in less hours of work. But however, I want to be 10 times more productive, hit the revenue goals and the business goals that I know my company can achieve. And a big part of that is going to be working smarter. And the only way to work smarter is if you are performing at your optimal brain health. And if you guys know me, and which you guys probably do because you're listening to this, I go to therapy, I've done life coaching, I'm big on like going to like personal development seminars, and a big part of a lot of the seminars I've gone to is about performing at peak performance. And a lot of that is your brain health. So I've done multiple Tony Robbins seminars. I've done a course on positive intelligence by Dr. Scheherazade. I forget his last name. I'll link it in the notes. But positive intelligence is just how much your brain is working for you versus against you. So I've done a course on that. A lot of the self development books that I read have to do with brain health. And through taking all of these courses that I've done, one of the big thing that has come up a lot is multitasking and how bad multitasking is for your brain. And so today that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about multitasking, why it's actually holding you back and causing you to not achieve your dreams and your goals as quick as you want to. Why it's actually bad for you, and then how you can replace that with deep work. And if you guys have never heard of the term deep work, this is exciting because you're going to learn about it. And I promise you, it's going to really change how you get things done and how productive you are. But the reason why I really want to focus on multitasking is because if you're anything like me, you probably identify yourself as a highly productive person. I know I do. And I could do multiple things at once, right? And multitasking should not be confused with habit stacking. Habit stacking's good. Multitasking, not so good. But if you are somebody that defines themselves as being quite productive, it's very easy for you to fall into the trap of multitasking because you're like, oh, I could do two things at once. And then you do two things at once and you do it Okay, good. But you really could be doing one of those things excellently, right? And sometimes the other thing that you're doing at the same time isn't really necessary. So that's the focus on this episode. And I promise you guys by the end of this episode, you are going to be able to look at your calendar, look at your to do list, and really form it in a way that's actually going to get you to get more things done and lower your stress levels and, be happier and not have that cortisol spike, which multitasking makes you have. Okay, so let's get into it. So, the first thing I want to talk about is why multitasking is not good for you. And like I said, I've done so many different personal development seminars, and almost every expert says that multitasking is bad. And here's why. So, your brain can't truly multitask. You might think it's multitasking, but really you're just doing two tasks at the lower level than you would be doing it if you were doing one at a time. So, it's important to know that the human brain cannot actually do two tasks at once. It rapidly switches back and forth. That's why you might feel like you're multitasking, but you're not. And when I say multitasking, it doesn't always have to be doing two hard things at once. But honestly, it could be like you're working on an email, you're working on a proposal, and you're watching or listening to a podcast at the same time. That's bad for you. And a lot of times you're like, well, like I can work on the proposal and listen to the podcast at the same time. No, you can't. Your brain is switching back and forth. I promise you, if you sat down and just did the proposal, you would get the proposal done a lot quicker and your brain will be a lot less foggier and your stress levels will be lower. Every time your brain switches back and forth, it has to reset, which burns energy, which is honestly why it's making you more tired. So, studies show that it takes 23 minutes to fully focus after switching between tasks. That means when you're working on your proposal and you're going back to your podcast and working through your proposal and going back to your podcast, remember your brain is switching, even though you might not notice it. Your brain is switching back and forth. You're actually at a constant state of not being in focus. And that's why it's taking you so long to do tasks that shouldn't take you that long to do. Another thing to note, and this was one of the big reasons why I stopped multitasking, is because it is actually lowering your IQ and it increases brain fog. So, researchers at Stanford found that chronic multitaskers perform worse on memory and attention tests. It lowers your IQ, and one study showed that multitasking can cause a drop in 15 IQ points, similar to being sleep deprived. This truly explains why, at the end of the day, when you've been done a lot of multitasks, you feel mentally exhausted, but you didn't get much done. Another reason why not to multitask is that it also raises your stress level and lowers your happiness. So, constantly switching back and forth spikes your cortisol. And this is something that I absolutely did notice. Like, I'll be working on doing a presentation and I would have like, my Giggly Squat podcast on or another podcast on and I'm thinking, oh, it's just a presentation. Like, I've already done all the words. I'm just focusing on making it look good and like paraphrasing some stuff. And then at the end of doing something that shouldn't be a high stakes task, I'm like, I need to go lay down. I'm like stressed, right? And it's because it's making you stress. I know the days where I am actually able to focus on a task where I like start at sometimes 8 o'clock and then finish at 5 o'clock. If I'm working on the same task that whole day, I feel so much less tired than the days when I am doing a bunch of things and switching back and forth. Truly, it is one of the reasons that's causing you stress. And I know for me, a big goal of mine is lowering my stress level this year. One of the reasons why I'm going to be investing in an Aura Ring so that I could track that. Stress really makes your brain foggier. It causes you to take longer to actually finish tasks. It is one of those things that like is a silent killer, or honestly not so silent, but it's a killer, and you should really avoid it at all costs. So anything that's unnecessary making you stress, and trust me, there's some things in life that like will stress you out no matter what, right? But you do not need to be adding more stress to your life because you're deciding, okay, I need to work and listen to a podcast or watch a music video or do something at the same time. And guys, I'm a podcaster too. So, this is You have to take this you have to believe it like I'm telling you the truth if I'm telling you you shouldn't be listening to a podcast as well as doing a activity that you're gonna need, like, your brain power for, right? Listen to me when you're going on a walk, listen to me when you're on the train, listen to me when you're cleaning your desk, cleaning your room, working out, like, that's okay. But, like, when you have to write an email, when you're doing a proposal, when you're doing research, honestly, listening to a podcast is just gonna slow you down. It really, really is. So whether it's listening to music or a podcast or, deciding you're going to take a phone call while you're working on a proposal, these things slow you down and just try to do one thing at once. And the last reason why multitasking is so bad for you is that it is killing your attention span. And guys, I promise you, now that you've listened to this podcast, you're going to go through your day and actually realize, like, wow, my attention span isn't as good. And that's something that happened to me when I really dove deep into why multitasking wasn't good for me. I noticed that I cannot watch a TV show without playing a game on my phone or without scrolling Instagram. And then I asked a lot of my friends, do you just ever watch TV? Or are you always watching TV and scrolling on your phone? And almost all of them were like, "Yeah, like, I watch TV and scroll on my phone, and I actually find it really hard to watch movies because I can't have my phone." Guys, this is something that our generation is struggling with, and, it was done to us in a lot of ways. Like, we grew up in the time of, like, the 7-second Vine videos and, having social media at our fingertips from a very young age, and it's really caused us to have short attention spans, right? Like, this is just something that is a fact, and you willingly choosing to multitask is making your attention span even shorter. Our brains are so used to being overstimulated, right? That we struggle to focus on one thing at a time. And it's really, really, really the number one thing, I promise you, that is causing you to be less productive. And here's the thing, if you can't focus, you can't do great work. And we're all here to do great work. That's why you're listening to this podcast. That's why you have those big dreams. Your work needs to be excellent. So, multitasking is one of these simple things that you could cut out of your daily work routine that will honestly make a huge difference, increase the productivity that you're having, increase the quality of your work, lower stress levels, make you happier. It just has an infinite amount of benefits. So, guys, don't multitask. Just don't do it. And now to the solution. So, we decided multitasking is out. We're not going to do it anymore. And what are you going to replace multitasking with? And that's deep work. You're going to replace it with deep work. So, the opposite of multitasking is this thing called deep work. And I'm sure many of you guys have heard of it. It's a concept that was actually coined by Cal Newport. And the whole idea of deep work is having fully focused, uninterrupted blocks of time that you could work on a singular task, right? And this could be something like, okay, I'm going to do some strategy work. I'm going to do some work in which I figure out a problem that's happening in my business, or I figure out a solution that could really help this client, or I'm working on this specific project, or you're building a product or app or something like that. I like to use deep work as this is the time that I'm working on things that's actually going to push my business forward, push my life forward. I actually classify deep work as my focus time. And that is the time where I'm like, this, what I'm doing right here, needs 100% of my brain power. And these blocks could typically be ideally in 90 minutes blocks. I personally like to get 2 to 4 hours total of deep work in a day, no less than two. And four is the sweet spot. But honestly, guys, you're going to find if you're able to do deep work, and I'm going to tell you how to do it in a second, you are going to be able to work even longer than 4 hours sometimes. You should split it up, but like have more than 4 hours of deep work in a day, and you're going to find your productivity is going to soar. So, deep work boosts your focus and creativity. It makes you more efficient. So, you get more done in less time. And that's a big one for me. I'm saying to like all my friends this year, I'm working less and making more money. and it's already feeling that way already, but truly you're able to get more done. It reduces stress and your brain doesn't have to constantly reset. Because remember, when you're multitasking, your brain is constantly resetting back and forth, and you're not able to actually focus 100% and give 100% to the task at hand. And it increases your success in your business, your job, your career, because very few people could actually deep work. If you look around at your colleagues when you go into the office, or maybe you work from home and you ask your friends about like their working style, very few of them are going to be like, yeah, I get on my computer and I work. Most of them are going to be like, I get on my computer, I turn on a podcast, I turn on a TV show, I turn on some music, and I'm working. And then I scroll Instagram for a bit, then I work, and then I go make some food, and then I work. And they don't have a scheduled time. They're just kind of going back and forth doing stuff, back and forth doing stuff. And that's honestly not the most productive way to do things. Even your friends who are like hard workers, if they're not doing deep work, I promise you, they are limiting their productivity, truly. So, we all know deep work is going to change your lives. Now, I've given you all the reasons why not to multitask and why to deep work instead. And now let's focus on how to implement deep work. So, some of these tips I'm going to give you are from some of my favorite productivity and personal development coaches like Cal Newport, as well as Daniel Sullivan, things from the 4 Hour Work Week, as well as some things that I know that have worked well with for me. So, the first step to implementing deep work into your schedule is set deep work goals for the day. So, like I said, for me, I like to get minimum 2 hours to 4 hours of deep work in. And in those 2 hours and 4 hours, I typically use them, like I said, as doing things that push my business forward. For instance, like I do not multitask, or I rather try not to multitask. But for instance, maybe I am answering emails, but I don't count that as my deep work time. My deep work time is time where I'm really doing critical things, right? Where I need my whole brain, that I'm like, okay, if I do this right, I'm going to find the solution to XYZ. I'm going to be able to move my business forward in this way. So, most experts say 3 to 4 hours of deep work is the sweet spot for peak productivity. And I would agree with that, honestly. Like I said, 4 hours is like a great day for me. 2 hours is the minimum amount of deep work. But I also find if you've gotten a really good night's sleep, and let's say you wake up at like 7 o'clock or even earlier, you can end up doing like 8 hours of deep work, like 4 in the morning and then 4 in the afternoon. Sometimes I'm able to put in 4 hours of deep work after 5 o'clock. If the day goes well, but really, if you are not multitasking, you should be able to do 4 hours of deep work and get it all in the workday. Another tip is to use Google Calendar. So I love this. I think a lot of us are either working a lot less than we think we are, or a lot more than we think we are. And I know this myself. I didn't have a good grasp on how much I was working. So last year, I decided to use the focus tool in Google Calendar. And what you do is you go to your Google Calendar, act if you're going to set a meeting, but then click focus time. And so the key here is to track when you are in focus time, and I actually use it to track when I'm in deep work and also when I'm just doing other work. And that actually will give you a really good idea about how much you are working. And so, what I like to do is I like to block off my focus time, my deep work time during the beginning of the week. So I know, like, okay, from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, or 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, that's going to be my deep work time. And then so I block it off. And then if I actually do it, or let's say I do it for longer or shorter, I adjust the focus time in my Google Calendar. This it gives you a really good idea about how much you are actually working. I actually found out last year that I was working way more than I thought I did, which is one of the reasons why I was like, I have to reset this year and, like work smarter. And I started re implementing deep work. I used to do this all the time, and then I took a break from it a bit last year, but I re implemented scheduling my deep work. So I know going into the week, Thursday morning or Tuesday afternoon or whenever, I'm going to do deep work at this time. What I want you to do is when you block off your deep work time, and then when you get to the time where you're like, okay, I can actually do it at the time, please put your phone on do not disturb, I have an incredible app, I'll link in the bio, it's called Opal, where it actually turns off your notifications and it actually locks your social media. And it also works on your computer so that you could actually, you can't get on your social media apps anywhere. Do that. Make sure your phone is not tempting you. So put it at the edge of your desk or put it in another room and just work. Do it in 90-minute stacks, 2 hour stacks, whatever works for you. I think 90 minutes to 2 hours is great. And another tip that I suggest you use is Merv. I'm going to link it in the show notes too, but it's really just this YouTube video of somebody else working besides you, and they have like 1 hour blocks, 2 hour blocks. 3 hour blocks, 4 hour blocks, and it's really helpful. It presents the same phenomena of body doubling, which is basically, you go to the library and you're able to work more because everyone around you is working and it makes you feel more comfortable. So I typically put a Merv on, and it's like white noise and coffee shop sounds and somebody just working. And that really helps me be able to focus. And then I know I don't need to check my phone. I don't need to figure out like what time it is. I have Merv up and it will tell me how much I have left of this block. So you're going to time block your schedule. Like I said, you could do it in 2 hours. You could do it in 90 minutes. I think 90-minute sprints is really good with 15-minute breaks. And the final thing that you're going to make sure you're doing is you're doing one thing. Remember, we're getting back to not multitasking. You're not going to be multitasking. It's not going to be helpful. You're going to be doing one thing, just working on your sales goals for your business, just working on developing a website, just working on your business plan, just studying, just doing the proposal. You're just doing that for 90 minutes and do it for 90 minutes to 2 hours. But I promise you, if you're able to do it for that 90 minutes, you're going to find that the quality of work that you're putting out is going to be significantly, significantly better. So you're just doing that one thing. And that is how you implement deep work. Now, here are some other tips that's going to help you not multitask and actually make you be able to do deep work better. Because performing at your highest potential in work and in your career has a lot to do with what you do outside of work, right? And it's just like a sport, You could get on the tennis court or you could get to the start of the race and you could be like, oh, I'm going to be peak mindset. I'm going to win this race. But if you haven't been working hard of the race, outside of the tournament, it's gonna be really hard for you to then just all of a sudden be at peak mindset, peak performance when you're actually on game day, right? So these are some of the things that I want you to do in your daily life to prevent yourself from multitasking. So watch TV without your phone. Guys, I know this one is hard, but I mentioned it before. Just watch Real Housewives. Don't feel the need to scroll on your phone too. Just do one thing at a time. Eat a meal without distraction. So try to eat a meal with your family, with your friends, and don't be scrolling on your phone while you're doing it rather than eat in front of the TV. And trust me, guys, I like eat in front of the TV all the time, but I do feel a lot more nourished and a lot better about myself when I'm eating and just focusing on eating and talking with a friend and, having a meal time rather than like eating and scrolling on my phone. Read a book without checking social media. One of the things that has helped me a lot with my attention span is reading. I do find when I read more, I say significantly less ums. I can focus on things more. My brain is more quiet. Read before bed. Read anytime you can, but I find like reading before bed is a really, really good way to get a good night's sleep and get your reading in. And it's really important. And guys, like I said, I listen to a lot of self help books because I typically want to get the help a little quicker than it would take me to finish the book, but I read all my novels, and that is one thing I do stand by. Read the novels, it's going to help with your attention span. It's really, really going to benefit you a lot. Don't feel pressure to read the self-help books, but read the novels, and I promise you, you will find a difference in your vocabulary, your attention span, your stress levels. It really does have a lot of benefits. If we're just talking about getting information in and out, audiobooks are fine. But if you want all the other benefits of reading, read the book. And then actively try to have conversations without glancing at your phone. I know sometimes it's hard, It's hard for me too. I know I'm typically like talking to my brother, my parents, or my friends, and I'm scrolling my phone and they're scrolling their phone. That's something that's very normal this day and age, but really, really try not to do that. And you're going to see the benefits in your brain health, in your productivity, and it's going to make it so much easier for you to do deep work when the time comes. So, guys, that is my spiel. That's my TED Talk. Stop multitasking. I promise it'll make your life so much easier. You'll get more done. You'll be able to work less, achieve more. And it's something that I've been putting into practice and it's been helping me. Remember, multitasking isn't a badge of honor. It's actually killing your productivity. And, we have things we need to do. So we need to be productive. So stop it. And that is the end of the podcast, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful for you. What I want you guys to do is just try not multitasking, and I promise you you're going to see the benefits. I'm going to put all the tips in the Substack article. It's going to be linked in the show notes. So guys, please go subscribe to my Substack. It has all that information. It's free. It's just a really great way to get the resources that I say in the podcast. You can find it all there. And thank you so much for listening. And you know what? I've been noticing that we've been having listeners from all over the world, and it really just gets me so excited. It makes me so happy that a lot of you guys are feeling that this is helpful and been reaching out to me and saying that you really like the podcast. So thank you so, so, so much. This has truly been a passion project for me and something that has given me so much happiness. So I'm glad it's helping you guys. Like, we have listeners from Germany and listeners from, like so many different states in the US as well as provinces in Canada. We have listeners in Africa, Australia, New Zealand. I don't know. It's just been really cool to see all of you guys listening. And I would love to hear from you guys. So feel free to follow me on Instagram, shoot a message to me. It makes me so happy. Tell me what you want to hear more of. I do this podcast because I really want to help you guys out there. I think I've learned so much through my almost 9 years of entrepreneurship now. And, I want to be able to share it with all of you guys, share what I'm learning, share what has worked, what doesn't work, and ultimately help you guys to achieve your goals. So it means the world to me that you guys are listening to this podcast. Please make sure to subscribe, give it 5 stars, send it to friends. And thank you guys so much for listening. And I'll catch you next time. Bye.